So there's the basics of the paints, just so it's easier for you to recognize and understand what the differences are. Hello, this is BJ from Hearns, and I'm going to be going through a little introductory about Tamiya paints and how they differ from each other. So I've got three paints here. Now I've got the first in the line, the acrylic paint. Acrylic paint is a water and alcohol based paint. Washes up in water. It's probably the easiest paint to use. And then in the middle I've got the oil based enamel paint, which obviously is oil based, so it's like a turpentine type base. It's a more traditional paint. It's been around for a very long time. Most people would be familiar with it. It dries, takes a bit longer than acrylic to dry. It's got a stronger smell, and it's a little bit hardier. And then at the end we've got the lacquer paint. So lacquer paint is a solvent-based paint. It's traditionally been found in Tamiya spray cans. It's got a very, very strong smell, but it does dry quickly, and it does have a very hard finish when it dries. Okay, so let's get into a bit more detail. Alright, so this here is the acrylic. So it's a water-based but alcohol-based acrylic. So it differs from artist type water-based acrylics because the alcohol in it actually helps it dry quicker. It's got a slight smell to it, but it's not overpowering, so it's quite easy to use, particularly with kids or anyone who's sensitive to strong smells or odors. It's easy to wash out in water, so that's a plus as well, and then it dries reasonably quickly. From here we've got the oil-based enamels. Now oil-based enamels, they use the enamel thinner for thinning and for cleaning your brushes. You can't use water at all, because if you put these in the water they'll seize up and they'll leave you with an ugly mess on your brush. Now these particular ones have been around for a very long time. You've probably heard of Humbrol as well, of England, so they're a very similar type of paint. They're very common to use these for weathering now, for streaking and such, because you can manipulate these after they've already dried. Then you've got the solvent-based lacquers here. So this one here is the cans of Tamiya. So they've traditionally been lacquers, very high smell, but they do have a very good drying characteristic, and they also dry very, very hard. So if you need a hardy finish, then this is the way to go. Now they've recently complemented that with the bottled type lacquer paint. Now they have a new code for these, which is an LP, and this particular paint is actually the same paint as the one in the spray can, except it hasn't been thinned out. So if you want to airbrush, which a lot of people have wanted to do in the past, because they'll get these and they'll decant that into a bottle and then pour it into the airbrush, you can actually just mix this down with some lacquer thinner and you'll be able to airbrush that straight from there, or you can even brush paint that as well. So there's a particular Japanese lacquer type brush painting technique, which is quite an artistic way of short strokes and such. Okay, so the important things between all these is you'll notice that these two bottles look very similar, and it's very important not to get them mixed up, because if you're predominantly a acrylic user, you don't want to accidentally pick up one of these and think that they mix between the two, because they don't. So just remember that they have an X code on the acrylics and also on the enamels. So X by itself with a number means gloss, and XF with a number means flat. So F obviously means flat. Now with the lacquer paints, they don't have such a coding system. So LP is just for lacquer paint, and then they have a particular number to correspond with that particular color. Okay, so there's the basics of the paints, just so it's easier for you to recognize and understand what the differences are. Now it would be interesting that all these paints in their system, they do have the specific thinners for each. So you've got the X20A for acrylic, so that's great for mixing for airbrushing. And then you've got the X20, which is the enamel thinner, so great for cleaning and airbrushing. And then for the lacquers, you've got the lacquer thinner, which is for cleaning and also for thinning. But between all these three, it's interesting that this particular thinner can be used on all three as well. So you've got little advantages in that the lacquer thinner has a particular different drying style. It dries a bit quicker, but it does have a very strong smell. So if you can handle the stronger smell, or you have a very good spray booth, then it can be an advantage of using this particular thinner with your enamels or with these acrylics. So that's your choice there. But if you want to keep it simple, just stick with these particular thinners to suit, and you won't go wrong. So there you go. That's the basic explanation of the 3 different kinds of Tamiya paint. So you got your water-based alcohol acrylics. They're the easiest to use and they're the most popular. I always recommend those for beginners. And then you have your enamels, which are in the little square bottles. They're great for weathering, and if you like doing traditional modeling, because that's what you're used to for decades, they do work very well. Slightly hardier than the acrylics. And then you've got your lacquers. So the solvent-based lacquers, they've got a very, very strong smell, so you do need precautions. A good mask, or spraying outdoors, or even a really good spray booth. And then these are the hardiest of them all. So they dry the hardest, and if you're particularly doing cars and such, if you want to polish the car finish to a mirror finish, then these ones will handle the buffing the best. So there you go. So thanks for watching, and I hope it's been educational.